ॐ सर्वजीवपापनाशकारणं भवेश्वरं स्वीकृतं च गर्भवासदेहपाशमीदृशम् यापितं स्वलीलया च येन दिव्यजीवनम् यापितं स्वलीलया च येन दिव्यजीवनं तन्नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्णमीश्वरम्। ॐ श्री विवेकानन्दार्य सच्शिष्य सुपूजिताय श्री शारदा देव्या विरतसेविताय श्री रामकृष्ण परमहंसाय अवतार वरिष्ठाय च ते नमः। Most revered Vice President Maharaj, Swami Smaranananda Ji Maharaj, most revered Vice President Maharaj, Swami Prabhananda Ji Maharaj, most revered President of this meeting, Swami Suhitananda Ji Maharaj, dear brothers, dear friends and devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. It's a great honor to be here to speak with you this afternoon. Swami Atmarupananda Ji just gave you a beautiful synopsis of the life of Sri Ramakrishna. I'm not going to try to give you the life of Sri Ramakrishna, even in a short scope. I just want to ask two simple questions, ask and discuss two simple questions. One is, why have we come here today? ও বাংলাতে আমি জিজ্ঞেস করতে চাই, আমরা কেন এসেছি আজকে? আপনারা জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারেন, মহারাজ আপনি সাইনবোর্ড দেখেননি? কেউ আপনাকে বলেননি যে আজকে ঠাকুরের জন্মতিথি? না, ওটা জেনেও কেন এসেছি? Those of you who don't speak Bengali, there's nothing wrong with your ears and there's nothing wrong with my English. That was not English, that was Bengali. Because there are many people here who don't speak English. Once in a while, not often, but once in a while, I'll just give the essence in Bengali so that some others can follow along a little better. So again, I want to ask first a simple question: why have we come here today? And it's not because I don't know that today is Sri Ramakrishna's holy birth celebration, Janmatiti. Even knowing that, why have we come today? People come together for so many reasons, and sometimes they come together without any reason. If you go to Calcutta, especially on a weekend, any day, but especially a weekend, you'll find a crowd everywhere. Charidike bhir ache Kolkataয়. But this is not a bhir, this is not a crowd. It's not people who just happen to be in Belur today, going about their business and just happen to end up here today. No, people have come here for a common interest. But people go to a football game also, or a cricket game, with a common interest as well. Say if India and Pakistan are playing a cricket match, there'll be some who are there to cheer for India, some who are there to cheer for Pakistan. So they're there for a common interest, but the interest is divided. So this also is not a competition. Even though there are four of us speakers here, this is not a competition. It's a sharing. And so we've come here for not just a common interest, like in a cricket match. We've come here because of a common ideal. We've come here because of a common ideal. Because this is a sangha. It's not a crowd. It's not football fans or cricket fans. It's a sangha. Yes, the sangha is the monastic order. The monastic order is the center of the sangha. But the Sangha also is all of this. This is all the Sangha. All of you are members of the Ramakrishna Sangha in the general sense, in the expanded sense. But in a very real and very important sense, all of you are members of the Sangha. We're here for a common ideal, not just common interests, but we're here for a common ideal. And we're here for a common love, a common love. Some of you may be, most of you certainly are Hindu. There may be some here who are Muslim, there may be some Christians here. There may be some of other religions or people who have no religion at all. But all of you are part of the Ramakrishna Sangha because of a common love. A love for that which Sri Ramakrishna is and what he stands for. So we're here for a common ideal and for a common love. And so that's what makes a Sangha. There are people who belong to the Ramakrishna Sangha who are in far, far away countries. People who have no access to a mutt, an ashram, a mission center, nor a Vedanta society as we call them in the West, who are far from any other devotees. Yet they also belong to the Ramakrishna Sangha because they're tied to the same movement through the ties of love, through the ties of common interest, and through the tie of Sri Ramakrishna. So one reason we're here is because we're part of a Sangha. But did we come here to remember a great man who lived in the 19th century? Did we come here to remember a great man named Sri Ramakrishna who lived a beautiful life, left many beautiful teachings for us to study and to follow? Is that why we've come? People come together to celebrate the birth anniversary of Netaji, Subhash Chandra Bose, Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore, and other great people. They come together to celebrate their birth anniversary also, to remember a great person who once lived. But that's also not why we're here. Sejanamra Asini. We came because Thakur is, not because Thakur was, not because he once lived a great life, but because he is. Because Thakur is the living deity, the living awakened deity of the modern age. So that's why we've come here, to see and to be here in the company of Sri Ramakrishna himself. So that's one question. Why have we come here? The other question will take up the rest of the time that I have. And that also is a very simple question, an even simpler question. In Bengali, it's only two words. Thakur ke. Thakur ke. A very simple question. Thakur ke chilen. Thakur ke. In English, who was Sri Ramakrishna? Or better, who is Sri Ramakrishna? Who is Sri Ramakrishna? Most of you know the story about how Girish Chandra Ghosh asked Swamiji to write the life of Sri Ramakrishna. And Swamiji said, "No, Girish Babu, please ask me anything. Ask me to drink the ocean, ask me to crumble the mountains to dust, but don't ask me to write the life of Sri Ramakrishna, because that I can't do. I don't have the capacity to write his life." So if Swamiji was unwilling to write the life of Sri Ramakrishna, how could anyone dare to? Luckily, some people did dare to, like Swami Sharadanandaji and others after him. Luckily, people did dare to, but it's very significant that Swamiji would not write the life of Sri Ramakrishna. I think that Swamiji did it partly because he didn't feel competent, because of his own his view of Sri Ramakrishna being infinite, but also because he knew that whatever he did, that would tend to become a definition. Even Swamiji couldn't have written everything about Thakur. Even such a great man, he couldn't have said everything that there is to say about Thakur. And because of his greatness, later people like us, small people like us, would have come and said, well, Swamiji didn't say that about Thakur, so that must not be true. We can't accept that because Swamiji didn't say it. Swamiji said this much, and so that's all we can accept. And that's what has happened in every single religion in the world. In Christianity, in Buddhism, in Islam. The great teacher came and taught. And after that, that teaching became both an inspiration, but also it became a limitation. That this far and no further. If our teacher didn't say it, then we can't accept it. You see the wisdom of Swamiji. He said in his own rules for the order, he said that if in the future new truths, new approaches, new ideals are discovered, which are found to be for the good of humanity, that can be accepted as the teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. What an extraordinary saying. What an extraordinary principle. Swamiji opened doors. He didn't close any doors. He didn't put any limits. So Swamiji was afraid of two things. Two main things Swamiji was afraid of. One was, he was afraid that the great power Sri Ramakrishna had brought to earth, that it would be locked up inside of a temple. Swamiji himself wanted this temple to be established. He started the worship here. He started the Durga Puja in Belur Mutt also. So he wasn't against that, but he was afraid that the tremendous power which Sri Ramakrishna had brought for the welfare of all, that would be locked inside of a temple, so that would be the place that you would have to go to find it. No, Swamiji wanted it spread to everyone. He said Sri Ramakrishna had come for the welfare of the whole world. And so that was one thing he was afraid of. Another thing he was afraid of was that Sri Ramakrishna would be limited by his followers. He was afraid that Sri Ramakrishna would be limited by his followers. He said once to Swami Yogananda at the second meeting of the Ramakrishna mission in Calcutta, and I quote, "Sri Ramakrishna is greater than his disciples understand him to be." And again, that's when the direct disciples were alive, not us who have limited understanding. Even the direct disciples, he said, Sri Ramakrishna is greater than his disciples understand him to be. He is the embodiment of infinite spiritual ideas, capable of development in infinite ways. Even if one can find a limit to the knowledge of Brahman, one cannot measure the unfathomable depths of our Master's mind. And so then, and in many ways, Swamiji said he was against setting all limits to Sri Ramakrishna. He was against setting all limits to Sri Ramakrishna. He said that he was the embodiment of infinite ideas. So those are the two things that he was afraid of. Now again, when we come back to the question, who was Sri Ramakrishna? Sri Ramakrishna K. Chilen. Sri Ramakrishna K. The first thing that comes to mind is that Sri Ramakrishna was an avatara. He was an incarnation of God. Swamiji himself accepted that. Swamiji himself said it. Sri Ramakrishna himself said that he was an incarnation. But it's interesting, Swamiji said two different things on different occasions about his being an incarnation. Once someone asked him, Swamiji, do you believe that Sri Ramakrishna was an incarnation of God? Swamiji said, what to speak of belief? I know that he was an incarnation of God. He was an avatara. But another time, when he was asked the same question, he said, the word avatara, as it's generally understood, would be an insult to Sri Ramakrishna. It would belittle Sri Ramakrishna. That is, the word avatara, as it's usually understood, would be to belittle Sri Ramakrishna. So why did he say that it would belittle Sri Ramakrishna? For one thing, because of the insufficiency of our common understanding. A word has two powers, or three powers we can say. One power is a word has the power to illuminate, to manifest, to illumine. When we say we use words in order to illumine a subject. It also, a word has the power to pritakkara, to divide. What makes this is not a table, this is a podium, that's a table. So this is, one word is used for this, another word for that. And a third part of language is avarana shakti, that is the power of words to cover and to conceal. And so that's what he was afraid of in using words like avatara, though he accepted Sri Ramakrishna as an avatara and knew that people would come to accept him. But he didn't want Sri Ramakrishna to be put into a box of our limited understanding. So he said the word avatara, as it's commonly understood, would be an insult to Sri Ramakrishna. That is, Sri Ramakrishna would become, he didn't want him to become just one more deity for offering incense, offering arati light. You have Matsya Avatara, Kurma Avatara, Varaha Avatara, Narasimha Avatara, and then another several, and then you have Thakur. And you offer incense to all of them, you offer bhog to all of them, etc. Just one more in a line of avatars. No, he didn't want Sri Ramakrishna to be put into a conceptual box like that. And there's also the problem that Swamiji recognized, that the mind has a tendency to become satisfied with words, satisfied with concepts. Ha, ami bujechi. Avatar maneki, ami bujechi. Ami banano korte pari. O, bo, to, akar, ra. Avatar, ami bhalo kore jani. That's the tendency of the mind to say, I know the word avatar. Yes, I can spell it even in Bengali. I can write it in Devanagari. I can write it in English. I can decline it in Sanskrit. So yes, I know avatara. No problem, no problem. And I can also recite yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata, etc. So yes, I know avatara. No, I don't know avatara. I know words. I know words. I can spell the word avatara. I don't know what an avatara is. So Swamiji was always afraid of that use of a word and a concept to cover rather than to reveal. We always have to remember that a definition is the beginning of understanding, not the end of understanding. As Swamiji said so beautifully in one of his American lectures, The Open Secret, even a flower, a simple flower, take the simplest of flowers, phool. He said if you take even the simplest of flowers, you can study it for your whole life, and you find that it's infinite. Its relations, its depth, it's infinite in its depth. You can spend a whole life studying a single flower. And so what about avatara? What about avatara? We put him in our little box, we call him avatara in incarnation and think we've understood him. No. That's a pointer pointing us towards the infinite, saying that yes, look in this direction. Yada yada hi dharmasya, etc. That's to point us in a direction of understanding. It's not the understanding itself. And so he was afraid of that. So we need to see Sri Ramakrishna with wonder and with devotion. That's what begins to open up what anything is, even a flower, even another human being. Is there anyone that knows any one of you completely? No. A flower we don't know completely. So what about the avatara? It's through respect, through wonder, through worship, through dwelling, through holding in the mind, holding in the heart for long, long periods of time, for a lifetime, that we begin to get a little bit of understanding of who he was. It's therefore Swamiji said that it would be an insult to call Sri Ramakrishna avatara, but in the way that is usually understood, not in a more thoughtful way. Shankaracharya even says that the definition given of Brahman, Satchidananda, Sat doesn't mean that Brahman is Sat. Sat means that Brahman is not Asat. Chit doesn't mean that that defines Brahman, because Brahman can't be defined. Chit means that Brahman is not Achit. Ananda doesn't mean that that's what Brahman is. Ananda means that Brahman is not Nirananda. That's all. And so avatara also is a pointer to the infinite, not a limitation. So, avatara. If we look at the meditation verse, and this is what I'll mainly, for the remaining minutes, I'll mainly discuss this. If we look at the meditation verses written by Swami Abhedanandaji, disciple of Thakur, the meditation verses Hridaya Kamala Madhye, Rajitam Nirvikalpam, etc. The first verse describes Thakur's absolute state, his nature as the Paramatman. The second verse, Nirupamamati Sukshmam Nishprapancham Niriham, that describes Thakur as a Ishwara. Thakur as Ishwara. And Vitaritum Avatirnam Jnana Bhakti Prashanti, that describes Thakur as the Avatara. And so there are the three levels that he recognized to Sri Ramakrishna's being: the Avatara, Ishwara, and the Absolute, the Paramatman. When we look at Sri Ramakrishna as the Avatara, we find, as Swami Atmarupananda said in the first talk in Bengali, that Sri Ramakrishna's father in Gaya had the vision of Gadadhara Vishnu, who came and said, I want to be your son. His mother, Ramakrishna's mother in Kamarpukur, saw the light coming from the Shiva Lingam and entering into her. So even before Sri Ramakrishna's birth, that is conception, Vishnu said that he wanted to be born as his son, and Shiva also wanted to be born as his son. Sri Ramakrishna's mother said that day after day after day, after she was pregnant, countless gods and goddesses would come before her and salute her. She said gods and goddesses that she knew about, and countless ones she had never even heard of, never seen. All of these would come and salute her as the one who was bearing Sri Ramakrishna. So even in the beginning, Sri Ramakrishna was Sarva Dharma Samandvaya, Sarva Devi Devi Swarupaya, the embodiment of all gods and goddesses. Swami Vivekananda said that in future times Sri Ramakrishna would be seen as an incarnation of Kali. So he was Vishnu, he was Shiva, he was Kali. The Bhairavi Brahmani said that Nityananda Kole Mahaprabhu Abhirbhav. that in the sheath of Nityananda, that Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya had come. So he was an incarnation of Mahaprabhu also. And Ramakrishna himself says in the Gospel in answer to him that he was the same as Jesus and Mahaprabhu. So already you have all of these gods and goddesses, that he was the incarnation of all of them. So in that first verse, we find that vitaritum avatirnam jnana bhakti prashanti pranaya galita chittam jiva dukkha sahishnum. He whose mind melted at the sufferings of others, who couldn't bear the sufferings of others. He who came to give jnana bhakti prashanti. He came to give jnana bhakti and peace to all beings. And so Sri Ramakrishna was the incarnation of love. No matter what deity he was associated with, he was the incarnation of love. He was the incarnation of love for God, who wept during his sadhana period. "Oh mother, another day has passed and still I haven't realized you." And he would weep at that thought. And then later he began to weep, "Oh my disciples, where are you? Where are you? Please come, I'm waiting, I'm longing for your company." He wept for his disciples, and he wept for humanity at large. So he was the embodiment of love. Love for God, love of God for humanity. Sri Ramakrishna as a manifestation of God, his love for humanity. So he was the incarnation of God. But let me read to you a short passage from the great master that Sri Ramakrishna said about himself. It's a beautiful passage. He said, "One day I saw that through samadhi my mind was going up by a luminous path, going beyond the gross world studded with the sun, the moon, and the stars. It entered first of all into the subtle world of ideas. The more it began to the more it began to ascend to subtler and subtler strata of that realm, the more did I see beautiful ideal forms of deities existing on either side of the path. It came gradually to the last extremity of that region. I saw a barrier of light there separating the realm of the divisible from that of the indivisible. Leaping over it, the mind entered by degrees the realm of the indivisible. I saw there that there was no more any person or thing having a form. As if afraid to enter there, even the gods and goddesses, possessing heavenly bodies, exercised their authority over realms far below. But the very next moment I saw 7 wise rishis, having bodies consisting of divine light only, seated there in samadhi. I felt that in virtue and knowledge, love and renunciation, they had excelled even the gods and goddesses, not to speak of human beings. Astonished, I was pondering over their greatness when I saw before me that a part of that homogeneous mass of light from the abode of the indivisible, devoid of the slightest tinge of difference, lesh matra bhed chilona, became solidified and converted into the form of a divine child. Coming down to one of those rishis and throwing its soft and delicate arms round his neck, the divine child embraced him. And then he said, "I'm going down, you please come with me." And later he said that rishi, as you know, was Swami Vivekananda, and the divine child who took form out of the indivisible was Sri Ramakrishna himself. Now when we read that, we might think, well, Sri Ramakrishna, he didn't have much education. He never went to the university. He never studied philosophy. He didn't know Nyaya, all of that. And so we can't take this too seriously. After all, in the Bengali, he says, ekta bera chilo, ekta jyotirmoy bera chilo. Ulonghan kore, my mind entered into the realm of the indivisible. I crossed the fence. There was a fence between the realm of the divisible and the realm of the indivisible. So poor Sri Ramakrishna, he wasn't very philosophical. He was just a poor village man. So he said that there was a fence between the divisible and the indivisible, and I jumped over it. And then he says something even more strange. There in the realm of the indivisible, where bed matra chilona, there was not the slightest difference. There I saw 7 rishis seated in meditation. How do you get 7 rishis seated in meditation where there's no difference whatsoever? No, we can't say that. We can't doubt what Sri Ramakrishna said. Why? Because he had a lifetime of spiritual experience, all types of spiritual experience. He spent 6 months in Nirvikalpa Samadhi before he said this. Day and night he was in different types of samadhi, different states of bhava. He followed different paths and realized the fruits of all of the different paths. So we can't just laugh off what Sri Ramakrishna said. Everything he said in this must have some meaning. But what it means to us, we don't know. It points to something. It points to something that we can't get to. But he told it to us in images so that we could understand something. Every single word in here must have had some deep significance. And it gives, even for those of us who have no philosophical background, it gives a beautiful sense of the divine. What it actually means, that we'll have to go there to find out. But it directs our mind towards that through the beautiful images. But you may say, well, what about someone like Shankaracharya? He was a great philosopher. So he wouldn't give all of these images. He would give the pure philosophical truth. Well, look at his introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Trigunatmikam Vaishnavim Swam Mayam Mula Prakritim Vashikritya, having controlled his own Maya, Swam Mayam, which was Vaishnavim, which was divine. So that we can understand, yes, controlling, I'm going to control my Maya, I'm going to grab it and control it, now I'm going to do something with it. No, but Maya is not an object. There's not God here and Maya there that he can grab it and say, now I'm going to do something with it. So already we're in trouble when we look at Shankaracharya's own words. And then he says, Aja Avyaya Bhutanam Ishvara Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhavopi San. Even though I'm the eternally pure, even though God is the eternally pure, eternally awakened, eternally free, unborn, eternal, the Lord of beings, Swamayaya, by his own Maya, Swamayaya, Dehavan Eva, Jata Eva. It was as if he took on a body, as if he was born. Lokanugraham Kurvan, for the sake of the welfare of all beings. So when we try to understand it even philosophically, we find that the mind is boggled. We can't understand it. It's pointing to something we can't understand. True, but beyond our understanding. The same with Thakur. And so in conclusion, let me say just a word to bring it all together. Sri Ramakrishna, as I said in this verse of Swami Abhedanandaji, he's described as an avatara. He's also described as Ishvara himself, the Antaryami, the Lord of all beings. Sri Ramakrishna said that God hears even the footfall of an ant. Sri Ramakrishna as Ishvara hears even the footfall of an ant. Certainly, as Sri Ramakrishna said, if God hears the footfall of an ant, he will hear our prayers. So certainly Sri Ramakrishna hears our prayers as well. Sri Ramakrishna, after the leaving of his body, the Ishvara side of Sri Ramakrishna becomes more predominant. Not that the avatara side is gone, but the Ishvara side becomes more predominant. If you went to Sri Ramakrishna during his lifetime, you would have to speak to him in Bengali or Hindi or have a translator. Did you know that now Sri Ramakrishna speaks English? Yes, he does. Did you know that he speaks Spanish? Yes, he speaks Spanish. Did you know that he doesn't just eat rice and dal? No, he eats all types of food that's offered to him all over the world. Sri Ramakrishna has become a universal being. He's become a cosmic being. I know people who have heard Sri Ramakrishna speak to them in English, even speaking American slang English, not even book-written English, but American slang. Holy Mother herself, who only spoke Bengali. Holy Mother came to someone that I know, a simple Mexican-American who speaks Spanish, and she said in Spanish, Yo quiero comer frijoles y tortillas. Yo quiero comer tortillas y frijoles. I want to eat the bread of the poor people of Mexico. I want to eat tortillas, that is flat bread made from maize, and beans, the poor food of Mexico. So Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, speak foreign languages. They eat foreign food. And they appear to foreign devotees as well as to people here. Not that it's common, but it does happen. And I know people who have seen Sri Ramakrishna, who have seen Holy Mother, heard the words of Holy Mother, heard the words of Sri Ramakrishna. So he's a universal being. And then the last verse of Swami Atmarupananda's meditation hymn is on Sri Ramakrishna as the Absolute, where there's neha nanasti kinchana, there's no difference whatsoever. We can't be Sri Ramakrishna the incarnation. We can't be Sri Ramakrishna the avatara. But we can be one with Sri Ramakrishna the Absolute, the Paramatman. When we follow the path of knowledge also, we're worshipping Sri Ramakrishna in our own way. Because Sri Ramakrishna was the embodiment of knowledge, the embodiment of wisdom. He was the embodiment of love. He was also the embodiment of knowledge. As Swamiji said in one of his beautiful hymns, in the last verse of the hymn, he says, Advaya tattva samahita chittam projwala bhakti patavrita vrittam karma kalevaram adbhuta cheshtam yami gurum sharanam bhava vaidyam. Advaya tattva samahita chittam. His mind was controlled and absorbed in the non-dual truth. He's the embodiment of the non-dual truth. He's the giver of knowledge, jnana data. Projwala bhakti patavrita vrittam. He's clothed in the garb of projwala, not just ujwala, but projwala, prakrishta rupena ujwala. The shining, his whole body was given for the service of others, and every one of his actions was one of supreme power. And so when we think of Sri Ramakrishna, let us think of him with love, think of him with adoration, think of him as the nearest of the near, the closest of the close to us, the most loving, the most all-accepting. But also let us not try to put him in a box and say, thus far but no further. No, because as Swamiji said, Thakur was the embodiment of infinite ideas.